Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I, like many of you, thoroughly enjoyed all of the mini consoles that came out during the mid to late 2010s, somewhere between like 2015 and like 2019ish. We got a bunch of different mini consoles that came out. We got the Super Nintendo Mini, or the Classic Edition. We got the NES Classic. We've got the Genesis Mini 1 and 2. We've gotten the PlayStation Classic. Uh, and then we've obviously gotten some of the more off the beaten path ones, or ones that weren't as mainstream, like the Turbo Graphics Mini. We've gotten the Neo Geo Mini. And there have been a few other. I think those might have been it. But if I'm missing any of the other mini consoles, you guys can let me know down in the comments below. But these were fantastic when they first came out, and I still think that in 2025, the mini console, or a mini console, is probably going to be the best family friendly gaming option as a gift. If you're thinking about getting someone a video game related gift for the 2025 season, I'm still a firm believer that the mini console is going to be the best way to go for a few reasons. A few reasons, right? The first reason is that this is going to be a console that everyone in the household is going to be able to relate to, right? So when you give a gift like a Super Nintendo Classic to a family member and they open it on Christmas morning, I can almost guarantee you almost everyone in the house that morning is going to want to hook that console up and play those games, because these mini consoles have some of the most notorious, some of the most notable, and some of the most fun games that ever came out for each of their respective systems. So even if you look at something like the Super Nintendo, I mean, you and the family can gather around and play games like Super Mario World, Contra 3, Mario Kart. You can get together and play, F-Zero, Donkey Kong, Super Punch Out. And I think these mini consoles offer a really good mix of single player games as well as, multiplayer games that two people can play together and have a bunch of fun together with playing these consoles. Now, for me, I know a lot of people like the Super Nintendo. Sorry, I know a lot of people are probably big fans of the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. But me personally, my favorite mini is going to be the Sega Genesis Mini 2. And I'm not going to show it in this video. I've talked about that mini many times before. I personally like the Sega Genesis Mini 2 because it has a really good mix of Sega Genesis games as well as Sega CD games, along with a few import games that weren't released here in North America. That's the console that I think is honestly the best to me. But if you're just looking for something that's a little bit more universal, something that mom, dad, and even maybe grandma and grandpa can play, then minis like the Super Nintendo, minis like the NES Classic, those are some really great minis that I think, would make for great holiday gifts. When it comes to some of the other minis like the Sega Genesis Mini, the Turbo Graphics Mini, the Neo Geo Mini, I think those are great gifts for your more die-hard gamers. I don't think a lot of families will really be able to relate to the games that are on the Neo Geo Mini, because a lot of those games are kind of like arcade classics, and unless you went to the arcade a lot back in the day, those just aren't going to be games that a lot of people can relate to. Same thing with the Turbo Graphics. Not many people had a Turbo Graphics. Not many people could afford a Turbo Graphics. Shoot, not many people could afford a Neo Geo either. So for those reasons, the games on those two minis are not going to be super relatable to a lot of families. And so for me, if when it comes to the holidays and giving a gift, I think your safest bet is going to be Super Nintendo. Behind that is going to be the NES. And then behind that could be any one of the two Sega Genesis minis. And then I know a lot of people might say the PlayStation Classic is a really great option as well. But I feel like the PlayStation Classic got a lot of bad reviews. I don't think Sony did a good job with the games that they put on that mini console. I think with their library and with their cachet, they could have done a lot better job with the game selection that they put on that classic console. It was just a bit of a downer, and I feel like a lot of people buy the PlayStation Classic to pretty much mod it and put all the PlayStation 1 games on there. And that's something that you could do, right? Because if you're wanting to play PlayStation 1 games with HD clarity, there you go. You know, put it on a PlayStation 1 Classic, mod it, and then you're good to go. But in terms of, like I said, in terms of just universal appeal, in terms of relatability, in terms of nostalgia factor, any one of the Nintendo classics, whether it be the Super Nintendo or the NES, I think those make for great holiday gifts. Now, there are some minis that I would love to see, especially as we approach the holidays. It would have been great to see certain mini consoles come out because I think these mini consoles would make great holiday gifts. And I think most of you probably know the first one that I'm going to say. It's about time we've gotten a Nintendo 64 Classic. I think that is a mini console that's very much needed. And I think that it needs to have 4 ports, right? It needs to have 4 ports and it should come with at least 2 controllers. I think if you want to buy 2 additional controllers for 4-player action, you can do that. But just imagine opening an N64 Classic on Christmas Day. You and your family probably wouldn't do anything else on Christmas Day. You'd probably wake up, open gifts. Someone would open up the N64 Classic, and it would be food, eggnog, and N64 all day long on Christmas Day, and people just having some of the most nostalgic moments that they've had in the last 10 years. So I honestly think that an N64 Classic would be amazing. I have not done any research to see if anything like that has even been considered. I highly doubt it. But I think that that would make for an amazing classic console. I don't know if we are far enough away from the 6th generation yet to consider a classic 6th generation console like an Xbox Classic or a PS2 Classic or a GameCube Classic or even a Dreamcast Classic. But I still do think that for those die-hard gamers, there are a few other 5th generation consoles that would be really cool to have because we did get a PlayStation 1 Classic. We don't have an N64, but I think a Sega Saturn Classic would be really cool as well. I know that that might be a tough endeavor. I've heard rumors about it in the past. Obviously, nothing concrete, but it would be really cool to see something like that as well. All in all, I think, again, just going back to the minis that we do have, to the classic consoles that we do have, I think that these, again, would make for a great gift, especially for someone who maybe they were a gamer in the past and they used to play video games and maybe they don't collect or they don't have any type of collection. This might be the catalyst that, that really sparks them to get back into collecting, back into game playing. And this might be the one thing that they need to kind of get back into the hobby. And also, I know the prices fluctuate all over the place because I don't think any of these classic consoles are in production anymore. So, if you do decide to go and get them, you're going to be paying like reseller pricing, which can vary, right? I've seen these go for anywhere between $100 and $200. Obviously, that's going to vary depend on whether it's new or used. And the prices vary from mini console to mini console. The Genesis Mini 2, I think, is more on the expensive side. I think the Genesis Mini 1 is, probably one of the cheaper ones. The TurboGrafx is probably the most expensive. That one I think is like around $300. But if you're looking for the Super Nintendo or the NES, those are going to be on the mediocre side. Regardless of which route you go, these minis are going to be cheaper than buying a Switch 2, a PlayStation 5, or even a Switch 1, any Xbox console at this point. These are really just going to be cheaper as well. And you get a bunch of games built in. So it's not like having to buy the console and then spending extra money for accessories and games. Here, this is a one-stop shop gaming system that is licensed, that is using what feels like original, equipment, original hardware, and will give you that nostalgic feel. So I know Christmas is 2 months out. We're ways away from that, but I'm already starting to see the decorations in the stores. I'm already starting to hear the sleigh bells ring. And before you know it, Christmas is going to be upon us. So I figured I'd come out with this holiday recommendation video for a gaming gift. And you guys let me know what you think. Do you think mini consoles or classic consoles are still cool to give as a gift in 2025? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.